Then sings my soul, my Saviour God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. It's a bright and sunny morning, and I'm almost there. It's been a while since Prophet Samuel had visited. Some time ago, I was busy grazing the sheep when my father sent word for me. I ran home dreading that something bad had happened. As I entered the house, I saw all my brothers glaring at me, and this old man, who I later learned was Prophet Samuel, talking to my dad. As soon as he saw me, he poured olive oil on my head, an anointing of sorts, I guess. Before I could comprehend what was happening, he was gone. After some time, the king's horsemen came in search for me, and they wanted me to play the harp. It seems that the king was tormented by a bad spirit. Though he liked me very much, he did not pay any special attention to me. I would go back home after he calmed a bit. It's been a while since he called me now. Well, back to today. My dad Jesse has sent for me, and I'm on my way to meet him. He's a very kind, caring, and a well-respected man in the society. We are a family of 8, and my dad is an old man. Of late, he has been worried about my 3 elder brothers. They had left to fight the Philistines more than a month ago. Oh, here I am, home at last. I'm sure Dad had a good reason to call me back. So, my dad has given me 10 kilograms of roasted grains and 10 loaves of bread and asked me to take that to my brothers who are in the army. I guess he was actually worried about them and wanted me to check on them. Now, the Philistines, our enemies, are camped at Succoth, at a place called Ephes Dammim. This means the land of blood, probably because of the red soil there. The Israelite army, where my brothers were, have camped in the valley of Elah. I'm all eager to see how the battle is progressing. I'm sure that my people, the Israelites, would have almost defeated the Philistines by now. Phew, I'm almost there. I can see armies on both sides. I have to run to catch my brothers before they go off to fight. Looks like they're getting ready to get into the battlefield. Anyways, I'm in time to see my brothers. Hello there, how are you all? It's been a long time. Oh my God, what was that noise? Who is that? I run to take a better look. I suddenly see this tall, very tall man. I think he must have been at least 3 meters tall. He's totally covered in bronze armor from head to toe. And oh man, his javelin has a huge iron head. As I got closer, I could hear him shouting to us. What are you doing here lined up for battle? I am a Philistine. You slaves of Saul, choose one of you to fight me. If he wins and kills me, we will be your slaves. But if I win, you will be our slaves. What audacity! He thinks he can win against the Israelites? Who is this man? Uh-oh, what am I seeing? Why is my army running back to the camp? They look terrified. It can't be. No, they can't be scared of this person. I don't understand. What's wrong? I stopped one of the soldiers who was running and asked what was happening. He said, well, the exact same thing that has been happening for the past 40 days. I was confused. Can you please elaborate? I asked. He said, the name of that man, no giant, is Goliath. He's inviting us for a one-to-one combat, a new style of war. Did you even see his height, his armor, the iron head? They say the armor weighs 57 kilograms. And the iron head of his javelin is approximately 7 kilograms. Can you even imagine what would happen to the person who fights him? Imagine the power of his blow. We would be crushed like ants. Just the thought of this is enough to give us the chills. Even the king is scared and he thinks someone would be dumb enough to try and fight the giant for the huge reward he has promised. Reward? What reward? I asked. He explained that King Saul had announced a huge reward for anyone who would kill Goliath. Suddenly I could hear Eliab's voice. He was shouting at me. What are you doing here? He asked. Who's taking care of the sheep of yours in the wilderness, you cheeky brat? You just came to watch the fighting. I just can't figure out what I've done for him to be so mad at me. In my anger, I snapped back at him. Now what have I done? Can't I even ask a question? As I uttered these words, I realized I should not have yelled at him. He's my brother. I'm supposed to love him and respect him. But hey, I'm a human too. Why does he keep annoying me always? I'm not sure why he's angry at me. Could it be that he's jealous that Prophet Samuel anointed me? I've heard my ancestor Joseph also had a problem with his brothers because he was favored. Anyways, he stomped off in anger. Let me avoid him for some time. Oh, here comes another soldier. I must find out if the story about the reward is really true. Excuse me, sir? I heard there was a reward for the man who killed Goliath. Is that true? Oh, I see. So it is true. Hey, why are you looking at me like that? Now listen up, guys. You honestly don't think I'm behind the reward, right? But I do like to know what my stakes are. Would any of you ever take up a dangerous mission without knowing all the stakes? It's the natural thing to do, right? Anyways, reward or no reward, I would like to fight Goliath. So I turned to the man and said, I want to fight Goliath. What should I do? Suddenly, there was silence all around me. Everyone was looking at me. I could not read their eyes. Was it fear? Were they mocking me? Did they think I was joking? What do I do now? As I stood there, frozen, I heard a couple of men approaching me. They asked me to follow him. I obeyed immediately, glad to escape from the weird looks the men were giving me. As the men walked, other men gave way, and a way appeared as if by magic. Before I knew it, I was standing before King Saul. So I bowed down and said, Your Majesty, no one should be afraid of this Philistine. I will go and fight him. Even as I said this, I could see confusion in the eyes of Saul. Not just confusion, I could see fear, sheer terror. Was this the great King Saul who had slain so many? I thought to myself. Earlier, I was sad to see the entire camp of Israelites cowering in fear. Have they forgotten what a great and mighty God they serve? Have they forgotten how many times God has delivered them in many miraculous ways? Is this all we are made of? I thought to myself, does it take just one Goliath for a whole army to shiver in fear? Now one look at their leader, I understand where the fear came from. It was from him. He was so terrified, I could see that his faith had hit the rock bottom. No wonder people were scared. His fear reflected on his people. Well, I'm not going to let that fear get to me. His fear was so great. Neither he nor his people realized I was the same boy who used to play the harp for him. I came back to reality from my thoughts as I heard Saul say, How could you fight him? You're just a boy and he's been a soldier all his life. Was he going to turn me away? Can't he see I'm the only hope he has? No one else is even willing to look at the Philistine, and he wants me to back off? What is he doing as the king? Interviewing a shepherd to kill a giant turning him down? I need to prove to him that I'm serious. Your Majesty, I said, I take care of my father's sheep. Whenever a lion or a bear carries off a lamb, I go after it, attack it, and rescue the lamb. And if the lion or bear turns on me, I grab it by the throat and beat it to death. I've killed lions and bears, and I will do the same thing to this heathen Philistine who has defied the army of the living God. The Lord has saved me from lion and bears. He will save me from these Philistines." As I said this, there was pin drop silence. Saul looked at me. I could see that he was really struggling to decide. "All right," he said finally, "go, and the Lord be with you." Though he said this, I could see defeat all over his face. He really did not mean that God will be with me. He was partly relieved that someone had accepted the challenge. Saul asked his men to give me his armor. So his men obeyed. Soon I was suited in his armor, a bronze helmet, and Saul's sword. I looked like a real warrior. All this was new to me, so I decided to walk a bit. I could get used to the armor. Oops, I could hardly move. I feel more restrained. There is no way I can fight Goliath like this. I cannot even lift my finger. I asked the men to remove the armor. I told Saul, "I can't wear all this. I'm not used to this." Before he could reply, I walked out swiftly with my shepherd's stick. I went to the stream and looked for some stones. I found 5 smooth stones, exactly like the ones I wanted. That would serve the purpose. Armed with the stones and my sling, I left to meet Goliath. "So, Mr. Goliath, here I come." As he saw me walking towards me, Goliath also started walking towards me. I could feel the whole Israelite camp looking at me. Goliath took one look at me and he was very disappointed. He could not believe that he had to fight me. I could see it written large on his face. After 40 days, all the Israelites had managed to send was you. He could easily tell that I was not even a warrior. He was so angry to see my stick. "What is the stick for? Am I a dog?" he asked. He started cursing and swearing at me. I could feel that he was very upset. He wanted me to cower in fear. He had managed to terrorize the whole Israelite army with just his words. It was psychological warfare. Does he think I will rise up to the challenge? He may curse me. He can say anything. I'm not going to stoop to his level. If I do, what is the difference between the idol he worships and the living God I worship? I will not defile myself because of him. However, I decide to reply him. I know that my camp is also keenly watching every moment and decide it is time I put some faith back in them. That Goliath is behaving like this is annoying me. But he does not know the power of my God. He is just relying on his own muscle power. However, I'm much madder at my people. They know the true God, they know his might, and yet their fear has overcome their faith in God. I know they think I'm a young man and won't take me seriously. Even now, the only reason they are watching me is to see me get killed. So I have to provide a fitting reply to Goliath and also to my own people. I look at Goliath and say, "You're coming against me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the Israelite armies, which you have defiled. This very day, the Lord will put you in my power. I will defeat you and cut off your head, and I will give the bodies of the Philistine soldiers to the birds and animals to eat. Then the whole world will know that Israel has a God, and the Lord does not need swords or spears to save his people. He is victorious in battle, and he will put all of you in our power." When he heard this, Goliath went crazy. He started charging at me. I was also prepared. I took one of the pebbles, placed it on my sling, took aim, and flung it. It traveled through air and hit Goliath exactly on the forehead. His skull broke and he fell down dead. My God had done it. He helped me kill Goliath with just one stone. Just like that. No drama, no long drawn battle. One instant was all it took for my Lord to kill him. I ran to him, pulled out his sword, chopped his head with his own sword. And as I looked up, I finally saw the sight I came here to see. The Philistines were terrified and they started running away. The Israelites had regained their courage and started chasing the Philistines. They pursued the Philistines all the way to Gath and Ekron. The Philistines fell down wounded. The Israelites came back and looted the Philistine camp. As for me, I took Goliath's head to Jerusalem, but kept his weapons in my own tent. It was a happy and joyous day. The God of Israel had proved his might and strength. I'm sure many of you have read about my story in 1 Samuel. By now, you think I'm a superhero who felled the giant with one stone, of course with lots of help from God, and that Saul and the Israelites were super cowardly, did not trust God. I do not disagree with you. It's a very easy judgment call. However, I want you to think about this a bit more. Where do you fit in the story? Who are you? Well, there may not be wars today, but maybe you know you're about to lose your job and you have a family to feed. Your family member may be sick. Maybe you're in loads of debts and see no way out. What would you do? Do you remember the issue you were all praying about last week? There was a QA audit in the food facility and everything was going well. Suddenly a cockroach appeared out of nowhere. The food inspector saw that. The kitchen was almost closed. A case was filed in the court of law and the company was reviewing if they should keep you in your job or fire you. Or, do you remember how you prayed for your friend's brother who is addicted to drinking and created a ruckus in the wedding so much that all of you were afraid that the wedding were cancelled? Or, do you remember how you have been interceding for this couple for almost a year who wants kids but are unable to conceive? How do you feel when you go through these situations? Are you scared, terrified, upset, worried, anxious? It's quite natural to feel that way. That is a perfectly normal human relation. The same brother who had an issue with the audit testified a couple of months ago how God had led him to this country, had helped him secure a good job, had blessed him. The friend who was getting married gave all glory to God when the relationship was finalized, saying that it had come from God and the two families were blessed. The couple who were anxious to conceive professed their unfailing faith in God a year ago and were hopeful a miracle would happen. So what changed? You all thanked, praised, believed, and testified about the great things that God had done for you or will be doing for you in your lives. However, when a new problem showed up, you turned around and became frightened and were feeling depressed and sad. You were anxious about what would happen to you. Your problem became your own personal Goliath. Now, don't you think King Saul was just like you? God had helped him in the past and he was very thankful for it. But Goliath was a completely new issue and that scared him out of his wits. So he was no different from you. Again, I know you all met the childless couple a few weeks ago to pray for them. They had given up. They met doctors who said it would be hard for them to conceive. They Googled and read more about their condition and the result was not too encouraging. Their well-meaning friends and relatives had hinted that they were getting old and need to consider adoption. They've almost accepted they cannot have a baby. How many times have you as a church read and meditated on Abraham's life and how Sarah conceived when she was old? How many testimonies have you heard of miraculous conception? How many people have testified about their children being gifts from God as they were conceived naturally after doctors had ruled out all possibility of that? But still, the couple lost hope. The Israelites were just like that. Saul's fear rubbed on the Israelites. Jesse's anxiety reflected on Eliab. They thought maybe this Goliath was too big for God to handle. Did you notice how they chased Philistines when I killed Goliath? I was not their leader. Saul was. All it took was someone to display faith. So who are you in the story? Are you the people who are scared? Or are you the person who is discouraged and afraid because of your friends, peers, colleagues, family? Someone said something negative? Again, do you see how you're the same as the Israelites or King Saul? Today the world has opened up and there are jobs galore, but you still worry about the one job you have. There is a technological explosion and anything and everything has technology, but still you're in doubt. Above all, you have a God who has led you this far, a God who has seen your every tear, answered your every prayer, the God who you believed and testified about, but still you're afraid. What has changed? What or who is the new Goliath in your life? Why are you afraid? Is it because your new problem is big and strong like Goliath? Is it because it weighs heavy? Do you think it can crush you with a single blow just like Goliath? Is it because the society around you is telling you that this problem is too big? Or is it because you think this Goliath is too big for your God to handle? Are you thinking, even if we start out with faith, people and technology around us make us question our faith? No, it is not any of this. It is because your fear has replaced your faith. When fear enters your heart, you become like the Israelites. You shiver, feel scared and depressed. At that moment, think about me. I was a shepherd. I had no military training. All that I knew was grazing sheep, and I had killed some wild animals. Do you think I was not afraid? I was. But when I thought about my awesome God, who saved me from trouble so many times, I felt confident. My God, who was with me 9 times, would be there with me the 10th time. My resources were small. All I had was faith, but that was my biggest weapon. When I crossed the valley in faith, God was with me. He saw me, He heard me, and He helped me win. The battle was not prolonged, but quick and fast. Just 1 stone was all I used. I still had 4 left in my bag. You can fell your giants too. All you need to do is cross the valley of fear. God expects you to take that first step forward. Have you observed a child taking the first step? The parent never helps the child for the first few steps, but after a couple of steps, they reach out and hold the child and help them walk. Every parent loves their child, but they know that unless they let the child take the first few strides, it would never walk. God is just like that. He wants you to learn to trust Him no matter what. You may not be sure if you can survive, but when you walk, miracles happen. Not in days, months, or years, but instantly, just like it happened to me. So are you ready to fell your giants with a dash of faith? You may still think that only people in the Bible did it. Let me conclude with a story of a human who lived in your times. A number of years ago, a 14-year-old boy spent a Saturday night until the wee hours of Sunday morning playing cards and drinking with some friends. The next morning, he dutifully went to his confirmation classes and returned home to find his father waiting to tell him that his mother had died the night before and to take him to her funeral. Neither her death nor the confirmation classes had any impression on him. 3 or 4 days before he was confirmed, he was guilty of gross immorality. The day before he was confirmed, when he went to the confession, he defrauded the pastor by giving him only 12th part of the money which his father had sent for the purpose. At 16, he was in jail because he ran up some bills at a couple of nice hotels and skipped out without paying. His father paid the bills and then severely beat his son, but the boy continued his deceptive lifestyle. At 20, he went with a friend to a home gathering where he saw simple Christians who had a genuine faith in the living God. He felt strangely compelled to return and converted. He began to grow in faith and obedience until about 10 years later, he was moved by reading the biography of another Christian to found an orphanage that met the needs of many homeless children in the city. He determined that he would give away all his earthly possessions and he will not ask anybody for money to support this orphanage. Rather, he decided to trust God and live by faith alone so that God would be glorified. He wanted unbelievers and believers alike to know the reality of trusting in the living God who is faithful and hears the prayers of his people. That man was George Muller. I'm sure all of you have heard about him. He was one of the greatest warriors of Christ. His life shows that God is still in the business of felling the giants of sin, if we will view those giants from God's perspectives. If we will trust in the living God and deliberately focus on his glory, not our own. The God of David and the God of George Muller wants you to fell the Goliaths in your life to his glory. All praise and glory be to God alone. Amen.